Well, I first met Lucien back in, do you remember? Back in 1996. We were in Scottsdale, Arizona, and Lucien was performing before a very sophisticated audience. Do you recall that time, Lucien? And what really caught my attention about Lucien was to see how he was able to mesmerize his audience. And they were just not mesmerized with the music he was playing, but with his storytelling, with his performance, and his sense of humor. And as I got to know Lucien better over the years, I have really come to understand that the reason he's able to mesmerize people like that is because he lives like an artist with passion, precision, and perfection. So when Lucien is telling you a story, he transports you, just like he does with his music. And in the same way that he runs his fingers through the keyboard to find the right note at the right time, when he tells you a story, we wait for the climax, the punchline, the humor, the wittiness that really characterize his life and how he tells us the story. And when he paints with a lot of precision. As you can see in his paintings, every rock, every shadow, every leaf is placed in the right place. And that is how he transports each viewer to a different aspect of the painting. And to tell you a story, maybe Uncle Joe will remember, when my kids were small, they invited us one night for dinner. And Anne and Ben, my children, they were still kindergarten, first grade, somewhere around there, and we heard a very agitated conversations between them, and we stopped to pay a little more attention, and they were looking at one of Lucien's paintings, and Anne insisted it was a fairy tale scene, and Benjamin insisted it was an adventurous scene. So how can one person give so much imagination through a painting? It's only through being an artist, and that's what Lucien does. And the same with his music. He's able to transport us with that passion, precision, and perfection, always hitting the right note at the right time. And he has been able to transform the restlessness of Parkinson's disease into the gift of mesmerizing people with passion, perfection, and precision. And he makes us want to be more perfect. Like today, I didn't come with black shoes. That bothers him. But that is how he is. Every time he places an ornament, it's about placing it in the right place, next to the right object with the right light, because otherwise it's imperfect, or in his own words, tacky. So that is why we love Lucien, because he makes us strive to be better, to be perfect, and that's why we love you so much. So thank you for sharing the gift of music, art, and storytelling with us.
was teaching, Missouri, wasn't it? Didn't you teach in Missouri? Didn't you teach in Missouri? Yeah, and would drive for the week, come back for the weekend, every weekend, which I thought, good Lord. And the funny thing was, he was telling Gertrude that he was eating hound hog with false teeth. And then he decided to leave that, and he said, now the false teeth have fallen out. So anyway, he was able to gnaw his way to fame and fortune, whatever it was. But no, Lucien has had a wonderful, wonderful career. And interesting enough, I think I saw the first screen he ever made. And he was telling me about this, and Coromandel screens are very difficult to do. And he was doing this with Elmer's glue and cardboard. And I thought, well, this is kind of an interesting and novel approach. And so he did, and each one became better and better as he became more proficient, of course. And so he sold, I think, 500,000 a month, didn't you, or something, at Anderson's. In fact, my cousins had a screen of his, which they loved, and of course they've both fallen off the perch at this point. But at any rate, Lucien seems to be indomitable. He's going, I think, Lucien, you're sort of like Old Man River, you just keep rolling on. But that's the whole story, really, that Lucien and I have been through, good Lord, nearly 60 years of whatever we all tried to do.
That was, isn't it, about 1954?
No, I didn't know you in 54, no. I graduated from high school in 54, as a prodigy, of course.
Longtime friend Allison Oliver talks about meeting Lucien, his art, and his music.
Well, I first met Lucien under some unusual circumstances. I was sitting at my desk at the Forum and one afternoon, or one morning I guess it was, and I got a phone call from first the person at the bank who told me all about Lucien and how wonderful he was. And then I got a call from Sis Carr, the little yellow bird here in Dallas. You know, she painted everything yellow. She wore yellow nail polish and everything, and she decided that you were the best thing since sliced bread, and she called me up, and I was just getting rid of her phone call, which she was just going on and on about you, saying how wonderful you were, and then there was a knock on my office door, and Lucien came in to tell me how wonderful he was too. And you know, he really was and is. God gave him too many talents. He left me out. First of all, Lucien is a pianist. He has all the education that they could possibly need, and he played, oh, it was just wonderful, before we got all these silly sicknesses and things. But he also was a gifted, or is a gifted artist. He used to go out to California several times a year, and he'd paint these glorious screens. One's behind me right now that he made. But most of the time he did these very light oriental screens. I have one in my bedroom. I look at it every evening, every morning, and I think of you, Lucien. It's wonderful. Anyway, but he made so much money doing that he could take up his wonderful Juilliard training and his music. And he has played all over the world. He has done a gorgeous job of it, and now he plays for a lot of the retirement communities here in town. He, instead of doing the Chopin and the Rachmaninoff and Liszt, he's started doing more of not the classical, but more of the popular music, and he sings along with it. I used to sing with him, but I couldn't remember the words, so he gave up on me. But Lucien's art has been something for us all to live through with him, and he has really changed my life. He really has, with his beautiful music. I have a tape of him. I have all sorts of things to remind me of him. All right, that was in I guess about 82. What is that? Something like 40 years ago. That's longer than I want to think about. And from then on, his mother and my mother decided they were friends. So Joe, who helps take care of Lucien, and his husband, we all used to spend Christmas, and we ate lots of food. Look, Joe's a good cook, and I kind of came along on the edges. But we used to all spend Christmas and Easter and lots of other times together. Joe and I did most of the cooking. Lucien did the eating and played the piano. But we used to, let's see, Lucien, I don't know how many houses you lived in, because we were always going to a new one. You were never happy about them. We started out on Blue Mist, and then we went up to, let's see, where'd we go?
Plano.
Plano, thank you, and you just hated that house. I thought it was gorgeous. We fought about where he's supposed to put the piano. But that's all right, he won. Of course he won. My little spoiled darling, he always wins. Anyway, we went from there and did a lot of things until his mother passed away, and then my mother passed away, and now Lucien and I are just really good friends. I love to hear him play, and he plays at the Presbyterian Hospital all the time and helps people with that. The fact that Lucien is able to play is just really God-given. It really is, Lucien. And we love to hear you do that. And I'm just so tickled to be able to tell you I love you. And I hope you'll play some more for me again real soon, okay? I remember there was a time when you decided you were never going to play again. And we had a terrible fuss going on for about 3 years. Because he decided that he didn't want a piano in his house. Do you remember that, Lucien? And I would call up and yell at you every once in a while and fuss at you, and you'd say no, you didn't want one. And finally we talked you into getting, because I would send all these different, this is a piano for sale, why don't you go look at it, this, that, and the other thing. You kept telling me you didn't have any money, Anyway, so you finally bought a piano. And you looked at me and said, I don't know why I never had one before. I said, well, because you were so darn hard-headed, that's why. And the minute, I can't imagine you not having a piano in your house. Can you? No. No, you're just out of your mind most of the time, unless you have your piano right next to you. That's your therapy. That's my lollipop. That's your therapy, okay? It really is. And I noticed that, but for 3 years, you weren't easy to get along with. You just sat and decided you were not going to play anymore, right? And how much have you played since then? Well, I love you, dear, and I'm going to leave this to someone else that knows you maybe even better than I do. But time goes on, we're all aging, and I hope you keep playing the piano because I love you. Bye-bye.